Hi guys, this is Max here, back again with hopefully another great political video, and today we're going to rank the top candidates for the 2024 Republican presidential nomination. Now, we're going to make another video where we will debate the best Democratic candidates for that office, but as of right now, things seem to be pointing more towards a Republican-leaning midterm environment, so I'll be covering them first. Now, as suggested, we'd get straight to it. We got 5 tiers: inevitable, likely, 50-50, unlikely, no chance in hell. Okay, then, now let's start. Where does Christie go? And no matter how much I like Christie as a person, as of right now, he just seems very much done. Of course, things could change, but I don't really believe he's gonna be the nominee, I'm sorry. So the fat guy goes into the unlikely tier. Now, Mike Pompeo, kind of a sideshow, doesn't really have a passionate support base. I got a hard time imagining him getting the nomination. Now, maybe you could say that Christie and Pompeo are in the 50-50 tier, but it's just not likely to happen that they'll actually run. Now, this guy, I don't even know him. He might, but actually, yeah, I don't really see it happening. I'm sorry. I don't even know that guy's name, so it's unlikely. Now, Sean Hannity is definitely unapologetically conservative on every issue, unlike Tucker Carlson, who might use some more populist rhetoric every now and then. But again, I don't really think he's the type of person to run for president. But because he's more of a national known figure, I think I'm gonna put him in the 50-50 tier. Now, Greg Abbott. Greg Abbott would actually be a good candidate. I mean, he's doing a very decent job as governor of Texas. I think he'd absolutely win the election if he was to run as the Republican nominee. He is kind of controversial because he's taking many radical positions, but he is very popular in Texas, and he's going to win by a pretty substantial margin when he runs for re-election as governor. So I believe he'll be pretty likely. Now, Ben Sass, I just don't think Ben Sass is popular with the Republican base. I think he could win an election if he was to be the nominee, but he's very unpopular with the Trump base, which still makes up the largest amount of the Republican voters, and they're just simply not going to support him, so he won't win a primary. Now let's go to Donald Trump. I think Donald Trump's likely candidate. Now, why do I think that? Well, the answer is simple. That man, even though he might not be the most competent person in terms of winning another general election since he already lost the previous election, I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm just saying there are other candidates who have a better chance at winning. He still has the largest amount of followers, the largest support base of any Republican, and he's the most popular with the Republican base, the voters that will ultimately turn out for every election, and therefore he is in the likely category. Now, Marco Rubio, I think, is a 50-50. He had bigger chances in 2016, but he messed it up back then, and he's unlikely to make a good comeback. Now, Charlie Baker, if he's unlikely, like very unlikely, but if some miracle was to occur, he might actually make it. Where did Charlie Baker go? I placed him in the unlikely tier. Where did he go? His picture, here it is. Yeah, he's unlikely, but it's just not gonna happen. I mean, he's the governor of Massachusetts. He's very liberal. He's pro-choice. I'm actually going to put him in the no chance in hell category. He's not where the Republican Party stands nationally. Now, Mike Pence, I think he's more of a 50-50 guy. If Donald Trump does not run, he might have a decent chance. So, yeah, he does have the possibility of maybe pulling it off. I'm going to put him in the 50-50 tier. But he's definitely has better chances than Sean Hannity, for example. Now, Ted Cruz, also 50-50. I mean, it's not impossible for him to win, but he's just not very popular. He might even have some troubles winning re-election. And no, I'm not talking about the Cancun story, but he's just very polarizing, and he does not come off as a very loving person very often. So he's in the 50-50 tier. Now, again, I want to remind you, this is not how I'd rank the candidates based on who's the most likely to win in a general election. I'm ranking them based on who's the most likely to win a primary. And right here and right now, here we got Tom Cotton. I think Tom Cotton probably also 50-50. I mean, he's a pretty conservative and pretty, actually pretty, he's a pretty conservative and actually pretty standard conservative guy. He does not really have a too passionate support base, but on the other hand, he also doesn't have any haters, so very much possible. Now, Rick Scott I actually put in the likely category because he is not necessarily very beloved by the Trump base, but he does have that like grandpa conservative outreach where he can simply just run an election campaign based on running on continuation based on, yeah, he's basically your grandpa guy who will just say, hey, vote for me, guys, I'm solid, and people say, yeah, sure, we'll go along with you, and he might actually be able to pull off good results. Now, Donald Trump, Eric Trump, I mean, no chance. And I think we can say that about all the Trump kids. I mean, they'd be absolutely disastrous. None of them would ever have a chance of winning a general election, and not even the Trump base loves them as much as if they'd vote for them simply because of their second name. So, they're all in the hell no chance category where they belong. Now, Dan Crenshaw, he's a 50-50 guy. I mean, he kind of looks cool with that pirate style appearance, but he suffers from the fact that he is not a too well-known national Republican, and he also is not the type of person that draws huge crowds. Now, Nikki Haley, let my own bias play and put her in the last tier. I just hate Nikki Haley. She's so much of a corrupted, self-loving, selfish politician. She's all the way down there where she belongs. Now, Christie, I believe she's unlikely. She would be a female candidate for the Republicans, but to be completely honest, the Republican voting base doesn't care about gender at all, and she would not be a good candidate. She'd probably not. She'd probably not win. I mean, the only thing that she can do is to lobber about her own achievements, and then when it actually push comes to shove, she backs down on important issues. So she's kind of similar to a lot of other people like Nikki Haley, like Mike Pompeo. These people really just care about themselves. And Ben Shapiro, yeah, he goes down there as well. Sorry, man, Ben, but just, you suck. You really, really suck. I mean, the only thing he's good at debating. And other than that, on every single issue, he's just terrific. He is just horrific. I mean, the only thing he talks about is some culture war bullshit on his YouTube channel. You're not going to win an election with that. Now, Scott Walker is unlikely. He might very well run again for governor of Wisconsin, and he might very well win. But I do not think he's going to run for president. That's something he tried in 2016, but he will not go for it again. Tim Scott's a 50-50 chance. I mean, he might actually win because he is a conservative guy, and he's always tries to be like a nice and approaching person, and of course he had a very modest upbringing which he could use for profiling himself, but I don't think he wants to run for president. No, not really not. This guy, no idea who that is. I'm sorry, I do not know all those people. Ben Carson, he's unlikely. I mean, he was actually a decent Secretary of Transportation. Even though he probably should have never had that position, he had no experience, just like Pete Buttigieg. Don't even get me started on that guy. I hate him. But Ben Carson goes into the unlikely category simply because his political career is over by many means, and he also doesn't even try anymore himself. He does go on Fox News every now and then, but I don't think he wants to become president. Now Jeb Bush, he's a meme today, so why even talk about him? Rand Paul, I think, is likely. I mean, he would actually be a very good candidate. He might have some crossover appeal, who could win some Democrats, who could try to get them to vote for him because he is a fighter, he does have charisma, and he also has his vision for the country and is trying to appear as standarded, as he's a very principled person, and that's what I like about him. That's what many people like about him, and you cannot accuse him of double standards like so many other politicians. He'd be a solid candidate. Now, then we have Mike Lindell. Well, I actually like the My Pillow guy. He's really funny, but I don't think he's gonna win a general election. However, if he really plays his cards right, I mean, who knows? He might actually end up getting the nomination. That'd be the biggest freak show of all time. Now, Tucker Carlson. I actually think Tucker Carlson is way more likely than a lot of other people would say. Simply because he is very popular with the Republican base. I mean, he is very popular. And unlike most other Fox News hosts, even unlike most other politicians, he actually can make an outreach to working class people. Now, he's obviously using some cringy methods every now and then. If you look at his shows, it happens very, very often that he just crosses a red line just in order to cross the next red line, and he says very controversial things. But he might actually win. I mean, with Donald Trump, everybody said it was impossible at first. With him, everybody would say it is completely unthinkable. He might actually end up winning. But I think it'd be very interesting to see how Tucker would govern, because nobody really knows anything about him yet. So, anyway. Now, I think Ron DeSantis is inevitable. I mean, if Donald Trump doesn't run, he'll be the nominee, simply because he's the governor of Florida. He's the standard bearer of Republican conservative values, and he has a electoral history in a crucial state, made that state far more Republican than it used to be before he came into office, and he's just the ideal type to run in a general election, which is the reason why I put him in inevitable. Now, this guy, I don't know him. I'll just put him under unlikely. He's another no-name guy. Now, Matt Gaetz. Oh, Matt Gaetz is so definitely no chance in hell. I mean, that guy was accused of child sex trafficking. Child sex trafficking. And the only reason why he didn't get expelled from Congress is because he had so many scandals at once. People lost their oversight. So, yeah, Matt Gaetz ain't gonna happen. Now, Josh Hawley, I'm flip-flopping between likely and 50-50 because he does not have a too passionate national support base. And also he is fairly new to the Senate. So maybe in the future, but as right now, I don't really think it's so likely that he's going to win a nomination. Just that's my honorable opinion, but he might run and he might actually win. I think he'd probably be more of a vice presidential pick for some other candidate. If anything, he's down there. Now, Alex Jones is a no chance in hell. I mean, here I got some very, very cringe Republicans, and actually, and some of them are funny, like Bush. Some of them are just terrifying, like Ivanka Trump. You have some cringy figures in there, but you also do for the Democrats, just not as many, I believe. Now, Liz Cheney, no, this is so not going to happen. I mean, she literally showed her middle finger to the Republican base. It's as she wanted them to primary her out. She desperately wants to get kicked out from her position. So that's the reason why she's down here. And Marjorie Taylor Greene, she would be the absolutely worst candidate for the Republicans to run. So she goes all the way down in the no chance in hell category. I'm sorry if there are any Marjorie Taylor Greene supporters out there, but she's just insane, man. That woman has the mind of a preschool kid. All right, then. Now, that's my Republican presidential tier list. I enlisted them based on how likely they are to win a Republican primary, and I also put in some sort of how electable these candidates are, but mostly because I believe people are more likely to vote for people whom they deem to be more electable. I mean, that's basically why Joe Biden won. So there might be a lot of people who just vote for DeSantis because they believe that they're going to win with him. But now, anyway, I hope you like this video. Likes, comments, and subscriptions are always greatly appreciated. And yeah, I hope you're having a great rest of your day. See you next time, and Max out.